Hey, 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 welcome to video number 5, day number 5. Actually, it is video number 6 if you count the intro to 21 Days of Prayer for Your Business. You know the drill if you've watched any of the videos. I'm going to say it every single time. Think of this as praying for a specific area of your life. It could be business, it could be marriage, it could be relationships, it could be you insert whatever. Parenting, and also it's days. The book actually says days, but it is okay if it's not 21 days consistently in a row. It could be 21 days in a year. You could watch just one video and somewhere through the year you complete it all. It's completely fine. And last but not least, if you do not have the book, it is okay. It's okay. Go through the conversations with us as we're discussing it. And I, this is my husband Jeremiah, my name is Monique, and we are walking through the study. We're actually walking through it every day with you. We're reading it the same day that we're doing the videos, and it's okay if you don't have the book. If you want to grab the book, we'll leave it in the descriptions. Also, he's going to cut off the car. We're going to be intentional and help the sound. Hopefully you can hear us better. But we're also going to leave in the description a place where you can download the intro in chapter 1 if you want to. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds good.
Let's
go.
Let's go. Okay, before we got started with the video, I asked Jared if he had any thoughts on it, and he was like, I have thoughts. I was like, do you want to discuss it? He said, no, we'll discuss it on the video. So I have no clue what's rolling around in his head. So I'm just going to start it off with you. What did you think? Let me hear
No.
it.
No, you got to start talking.
I got to start talking. If you watch the video on gifts and talents, Jer lets it be very known that this is not his cup of tea. He likes doing behind the scenes stuff.
I just chime in. So you got to you give me. When you get to that cue, then I'll chime in what I want to say.
Okay, when the aha comes to you. Well, today we're talking about being intentional. And in the video that we did previously to this one on, I think it was day 4, we talked about catching a vision. And, you know, whether it's catching a vision or really just anything in life, we've got that moment where we have to be intentional. We have to put action. We have to take steps. We actually have to get the ball rolling. And a lot of times, specifically in business, we'll know the things that we need to do. We just don't do them. My goodness, that's even in relationships. That's in a marriage. That's in parenting. Like, we know these things that we should do, but are we actually implementing them? In the book I had recently, when I was writing it, I just listened to a sermon series, and I think it's so funny. This was a really interesting chapter to read today. But I think we wrote this about, what did we say, like 6 or 7 years ago? Mm-hmm. So we've had 6 or 7 years pass since we're kind of going through this. And it was talking about a message that I had heard our pastor speak on stress. And I remember actually sitting in the message and thinking, this is all so good. And I know all of these things. I'm just not doing it. I'm not doing it. I wasn't being intentional in applying these and putting them to practice in my life. And can you think of any times in your life or situations where you know there's things you should do, you're just not doing it? Like, it's a no-brainer. We probably shouldn't eat ice cream and drink 10 colas a day and like eat pizza for every meal. Like, that's probably a no-brainer. It's also probably smart that we exercise, that we get some cardio, that we do all these things. That's kind of a no-brainer. It's probably important in a relationship with your spouse that you have some communication, you go on date nights. We know things, but do we do them? And so I would just ask you, like, what are reasons why you don't do it? Can you think of some reasons why you wouldn't be intentional in aspects of your life?
Yeah, probably scrolling social media.
Okay.
Or, you know, just doing busy work.
So you lose your focus, or you are distracted by something. Yeah,
one of the things that I thought of when I was reading it is we were listening to a podcast recently, and the guy was talking about being present. Mm-hmm. And it's like sometimes we're just like, I'm just not present. I'm like doing all these things and thinking of all these other things, but like I'm not getting actually what I needed to get done. And I think that for me, that's what happens a lot. That of that I know that what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm just not present doing it because I'm thinking of doing or scrolling or doing all these other things, and I'm just sort of going through life, and then I look up and it's like, oh, it's time for dinner. So
yeah, I thought it was interesting in the podcast. It was the one we were listening to was Huberman and
Peter
Attia, and he was talking about how, in the moment he was catching himself either when you're not present, you're either distracted with something else or you are thinking about something in the future or something in the past. I thought that was really interesting because it is like I can see myself getting caught up in that. You've got your distractors as normal, like scrolling or whatnot, but also that whole thing of like always looking one step ahead or doing something else, or like what we said about freedom from the past video, we're always looking in the rearview mirror and we're not really present in the moment. I really didn't even think about that when I was writing this or reading it. The importance of being intentional, of being present in the day. I think that's probably one of my biggest struggles is that, let me say I feel like I'm majorly improving in this area. And that's something that I realized as I was kind of walking through it. I'm going to read out. If you have a notebook, if you've been watching these videos, I know you already have a notebook where you've been writing your homework. At the ends, I always leave you with some homework to do, but write these things down. I asked, like, what's a day in the life look like for you? Like from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed, what's a day in the life? What does a week look like for you? What does a month look like for you? What does a year look like for you? And I wrote that down. I wrote my answers down, and I have to say, I was like, ooh, I like my answers. Like, I like what I'm writing down. And so I would ask you, write all those things down so we can, once we see it on the page, we can kind of go, oh, wow, these are our time suckers. And these are things that are good that's getting in our day.
Yeah, it's really hard to know what things are unless you track them.
Yes.
And, we say that all the time. You just don't know what you don't know until you see the numbers or you see, what your list is written down and you're like, that probably doesn't need to be there, or I need to add this to the list. But if you're just going through the day and you don't really have a plan, then it's pretty easy. It's a lot easier actually to get off your routine or off your things you want to be intentional with. If you write it down and you can actually see, what your goals are for the day, and there's some things that are not on there, then it gives you a better filter to make decisions with throughout the whole day.
Yeah, I love notebooks. I love dry erase boards. I love lists. That's just something I love. I love writing down lists. And there's always different rules of thoughts on lists out there. Either lists are good or lists are bad or lists are this, or, sometimes I can even not be present in the moment because my list is so I have to check the list off. Oh, wait, this isn't on the list. I got to check the list off. And we don't allow ourselves to have things pop up to be present in the moment. But I was going somewhere with that and I completely lost it.
Well, I think for you, the list is good.
Yeah.
And it just gives you a roadmap. I mean, obviously, like we've been saying, you're gonna get off the route a little bit, just course correct and come back to it. But what you don't know, what you don't see.
Yes, that's where I was going with that. Basically, one of the things that I've been doing lately, we mentioned in the previous video that we are getting ready to go on a 60-day trip. We're less than a month away when we go on it. And so I had a list of things that I wanted to accomplish before we go on the trip. And that's been really good because it's helped me to be intentional as I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got 3 full weeks left before we go. And then the last week is the week we leave at the end of the week. And I'm like, that doesn't count because I'm going to be so sidetracked and so unfocused on preparing and getting everything packed up So it's like I know, and that's how I'm kind of like planning my little months out. I also know when we get back, I've got kind of the month of August, from the time that we're filming this, that I'm going to kind of give it a little bit of rest. And then I've got some things I want to jump back into and walking through some courses and stuff with you guys. So I actually have some things kind of mapped out for the year that I can be intentional with, that I already have listed out. And again, this is just something that you can apply business related or just things around life. But I mean, you can do this with your marriage. You can do this with your parenting, like plan date nights. One of the things that our daughter, but we've got two daughters, both just recently got married. Our youngest daughter, they have a date night every Friday night. They have a date night every Friday night. They have a babysitter lined up every Friday night. It's not us. Occasionally it is. But they are intentional with that. And I think that is so huge, that they know communication and they know that quality time with one another is important, but they've actually been intentional and put some legwork to it. That's phenomenal. That's just a good example of applying something with intentionality in another area other than business. So the next thing that I ask in the book is, what do you value? What are some things that are super, super, super important to you? I'll tell you what are some things that we value. Our values are pretty much spot on the same.
Faith, family.
Mm-hmm. Faith, family, wellness, thriving whole body, soul, and spirit is super important to me. I know it's important to you too.
Mm-hmm.
It's super important. I majorly value embracing our gifts and talents. If there's something that we've been gifted in, we talk about that in the video that you were uniquely made. If you're uniquely made for something, are you using it? Are you using those gifts and talents? Are you putting them to use and adding value? I mean, doing these videos, we mentioned we wear these little bands on our wrist, and
I have one to match all my outfits.
He does. He has a band for every color outfit. I wore just a plain black one forever, and I just got this one color. So anyway, I love you. I'm not that fashionable. But anyway, one of the things that I'm super, super just over the top excited about is helping people kind of get a better grasp on their sleep, on their stress, just on their overall health. I'm not going to claim to be this huge fitness guru, nutrition guru, but I am extremely passionate, especially about people who are majorly driven in the workplace, who are like going after goals. Sorry, my throat's a little scratchy, but that they wear themselves out and that they put other things in ahead of their wellness. Because if you're not thriving in your body and your soul and your spirit, then you're going to be lacking and not being able to give your full wherever else you are. So that's a huge value of mine. So helping other people would be me adding value with that, and something that's a gift and a talent.
Yeah. Another one is always growing.
Yes.
We both really like to learn, and
yes.
She learns about the stuff she likes, and I learn about the stuff I like, and occasionally it matches up. Like we've been saying, we listen to these podcasts that we're learning about health and just some different areas that we haven't really delved into before, and it's really fun to just have your mind, your almost your world view kind of like shifted a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, were you going to say something else? When I wrote down what a day in the life looks like, I get up, I clean up, do some things around the house, exercise, sauna. I spend typically some time with our kids. We pretty much either talk to our kids or see our kids and grandkids every single day. Right now, for the past couple months, we've been working on decluttering and cleaning out some storage, creating space. We've been working on trip planning. We do this pretty much every day. Researching, like you said, I wrote that down. We listen to either books or we listen to podcasts. We focus in on family every day. Every day, family with us. We wind down at night. Watch a funny show and laugh. We typically pick a series. My best friend Natalie, we talk every single day. We voice text each other every single day. It's on my list. Like, it's going to happen. We're going to communicate and we're going to talk because our friendship is very important to me. Our relationship is important. And we've got the type of friendship that if we didn't talk for a month, we'd be fine. But I want to talk to her every day. And so we do that. I've been working on like breath work every single day. We have scriptures that we'll turn on and play, like a loop of these scriptures that play on our TV. And like, we don't literally, I mean, we don't have the TV on during the day, but we'll put something like that. That's just like kind of background noise of these verses that is just playing. And
I love the name of it. It's called Soak Stream. And I just feel like that it is like you don't really pay close attention to it, but every now and then I'll be like, oh yeah, I like that one.
That verse.
You know, and it just kind of is always there in the background. So I like that a lot.
We'll put a link to what we listened to in the description of this. Let's not forget to do that.
Yeah.
So as I was writing all of my list down, I was like, oh my goodness, like what I value is getting in my day and is getting in our day. And so I would ask you, as you've looked at your list, are things getting in your day that you value?
One of the things that I love about values is it's what's valuable to you. Mm-hmm. So we've listed off, like, you kind of think there's this inherent list up in the sky of like values everybody should have, but it's your values.
Yes.
It's values it's what's valuable to you. So like we've listed some, like watch a funny show before we go to sleep, or like,
embrace your gifts and
get in the
talents,
sauna. We've listed some crazy things, but it's just it's important to us, mm-hmm. and it's really improving, our life, and mm-hmm. It's just helping us to be better, feel better, mm-hmm. And all those things. So it's really important that you pick some that's valuable to you, not other people's values.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at some people and say this is their list of values, and you're like, oh, well, I should value that. Well, I mean, it's
there are some values that are good for everybody.
Yes.
But what we're more talking about is the things that, like, you in your everyday life, what's valuable to you.
Mm-hmm. And if they're getting in your day, then high five, man, you are right on track. And so then I go in and I ask, like, what are some things that can be a time sucker? And, I listed social media. You said that scrolling. I'll be honest, social media is not as much of a time sucker to me as it used to be. It really isn't. And I even wrote that down, and because it immediately came to my mind, and I thought, actually, it's really not.
You've been keeping me so busy, I haven't really looked at it. So
listen,
not for me either.
Listen, seriously, when I say that we're on this mission to have this list accomplished before we go on this trip, because I want to go on the trip and kind of have it free and not kind of in the back of my head that we left things undone at home.
Yeah, I'll finish one thing on the list, and then I'm like about to sit down and look at my phone, and she's like, "What you doing?"
Yeah. I'm like, so what you working on, babe? That's exactly what I say. I'm like, what you working on, babe?
And I'll just randomly name a thing on the list, and I'm not doing that at all.
What? Busted.
Yes, so, I'm taking out the trash in just a minute.
Yeah, I'm like, you're not taking out the trash. But anyway, so, we went on, let me see, I think I talk about it. I'm going to give you some verses, but I'm going to keep on going with this, with the values. We attended a business workshop. I think it was it was probably about 8 or 9 years ago. It was actually a Disney Institute, and it was a leadership kind of training, and they were talking about values. And, honestly, it's been one of the most profound practices that I've done in any type of like workshop setting. And I feel like we had a good grasp on what we valued, but it was earth-shattering. So here's what they said. They said, they wanted us to list out what our values were. They kind of gave us this big, huge list of all these words, and you go through and you just circle a bunch of words that kind of stand out. And then they're like, we want you to narrow it down to 5. And then they go, okay, these things, are they making it into your business? Are these things that you value, are they making it into your business? And then they said, okay, what are things that you could be doing that you're not doing, that could make your values get into your business more. And then they said, what are some things that you are doing that go against your values? And how can you get those out of your business or out of your life? And so I would say that's kind of the same thing, whether it's in parenting or relationships or marriage, whatever, like go through that list and ask yourself that.
One of the cool exercises from that was they made us think about different companies and like if we could name like what their values were, and we could. It was it was interesting, and they're like, that's because they put it on everything, and they in everything they do that's a part of it. And so they were like, can other people look at your life, at your business, at whatever, and just by looking at it, see what your values are. And that's a really interesting exercise to think about.
Yeah, because a business can have their values listed on their wall, but if they're not implementing and being intentional and getting their day, you don't even know that that's what.
Well, both are important. It needs to be listed on the wall, but it also needs to be in every aspect of what they do.
Yeah, but if it's just a list and you're not doing it, then you're not going to be known for that. In our previous business we were with for probably close to 10 years, one of the things that I loved is that family and faith are our top two priorities. And I feel like during our time there, when we would go to company functions or whatever, we made sure our family was there, our kids were there, like we were a part of everything together. And it got to a point as the kids got older, if they weren't there, people would ask about them. Or people, all these years later will send a message about how something we encouraged them with their faith. And I love that because it was stuff that was important to us and it got in our day.
Yeah, it was always fun. We try to always refocus, from year to year or 6 months, whatever, refocus on those things. And it was always fun when we'd go to something like that. We'd get comments that were like, they were talking about that focus. We were like, "Oh, we're doing it right."
Yeah,
because that was the most things people would say or comment or tell us.
Yes,
was those things, those values that we were trying to focus on at that time.
Yes,
or refocus on it. So that was always really cool to see.
Yeah, and even as we've kind of moved on and we're no longer with that particular business, there will still be people that will mention, "Oh my gosh, I'm still following along. Your kids, oh my word, they grew up. I feel like, I grew up with them and they're having babies now." And so I love that. So let that be something that as you're kind of working through your day, that's something you want to be known for, the things that are very important to you and that you're being intentional and getting them into every aspect of your life. There's a verse in the Bible. There's two verses that I want you. There's another Jeremiah.
Well, before you, let me interrupt you before that, because there was something good in that paragraph.
Okay.
We talk, you hear all the time, like, you gotta be balanced. You gotta be balanced, and it's almost impossible to do anything very well and be balanced per se. I always like to use the word priorities. And so if those values are a priority and they're getting into your everyday, then you feel balance.
Yes.
Even though you're like running hard after something, it's not really balanced, but if those things are a priority to get into your everyday, then you feel a sense of balance.
Yes. If you are ever in a business or something in a relationship and stuff is going against your values, you are not going to be at peace. You are like, that is just a red flag. That is something that's like abort mission, abort mission. If it goes against your values, you just don't need to be there any longer. And so I would tell you, make sure that that's on the forefront of your mind. And that's super hard in business. And, it's hard to kind of course correct, but you do it. It steals your joy. It steals your peace if it's not lining up with truly who you are. And so that's really a really good point. There's some verses here. Psalms 90:12. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. You made a comment when we talked about this verse earlier.
Well, that same podcast, Andrew Huberman and Peter Attia has this practice where he, projects some date of death or whatever, and he counts how many weeks between that time and right now, and he puts it on a calendar and marks off the weeks. And so I was like, hey, that's the same thing of teaching me to number my days. And it just helps you have a visual representation of how short life is, I guess you could say, and how, like, you really need to have your priorities and your intentionality for your days, like, really set up good, because they just keep getting marked off.
Yeah.
And it goes quick. So if you want to, be successful in a business or in your parenting, man, those days go by quick.
Yes.
So make sure that, like we said before, you have it written out, sort of have a game plan, and you really try to get those in every day as your priorities.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, the season that we're in, our girls are, having babies, and we are like enthralled into the depths of grandparenthood. And I'm just like, he's like, you can say no sometimes. I'm like, no, like I understand how fast it goes by, and like I just want to like soak it all up, and like, oh my gosh, I want to soak up every moment, and so make the days count. And I thought that was a really cool thing, because in that podcast he was saying that he wants to make sure that he's adding as much value as he can every single week, and that he's being present in the moment every single week. And I think that's phenomenal. The next verse is Jeremiah 6:16. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient path. Ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you will find rest for your soul. And I think that's just a good point of like just analyzing and evaluating. We'll talk about that later on in our study together. But just being able to evaluate. We don't know what you don't know, kind of looking back, and then, allowing that to help you with your plan moving forward. And then finally, I kind of jumped ahead of what we said at the end, but we talked more about your values, narrowing them down to 5, and then go through that. How are these getting in my day, in my life, in my relationships? Can somebody be able to see that this is what's important to me? And then, again, is there anything that is going against your values, and how can you omit those from your life? Okay. Now, before we end, I'm going to give you some homework. And honestly, I did not even look over the homework. So let's go through it together for the first time. I want you to,
for the record, I read it.
Did you read the homework?
I didn't do it, but I read it.
See? He's so bad. If you haven't watched other videos, he is bad. He does not, that's not speaking words of life over you. Okay. I want you to write out your top 5 values on several note cards and place them where you can see them often. Be intentional with these values and fight to get them in your day.
Let me say something. We're going a little long here, but I have this card on my bathroom sink that this guy, Mr. Jackson is his name, he had the very first Chick-fil-A in Alabama, and he comes to my gym every now and then, and he just had those cards and he was giving them out, so I took one, and it was like, it's like a set of values or things to be intentional for the day, like 7 things to have a great day, and like I read that all the time. I've read it this morning, and I'm just like, that's so good. That's so impactful.
And that was what probably a value of is to add value to other people.
And that's one of the things on the list is to find somebody and help them today.
Yeah, and he still adds value to your life every day.
So it's a really cool thing.
That's super cool. Commit to taking at least one time waster and eliminating it from your daily agenda. Hold on one second. I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, but not my family members. Man, I'm going to have to take them off my Do Not Disturb or my Disturb list. Okay, commit to taking at least one time waster off your list. If you saw a time waster of something that's sucking the time away, can you eliminate it? And just try maybe eliminate it for a week and see how it goes. And then here's some verses again. Psalms 90:12, Jeremiah 6:16, and James 4:14. Listen, what you're doing right now, watching these videos, you're being intentional. You're already you are moving in the right direction. You're being intentional. You are making the Lord the priority in the center of what you're doing. You're giving him control. You are rocking and rolling. So I want to encourage you and tell you high five. All right, Jer, take it over. Here's your daily end drill.
If you like this video, or maybe you just didn't hate it, give us a big thumbs up, that little like button down there.
Pretty please with sugar on top.
Also, it would really help our channel if you would subscribe and maybe tell some other people so they can subscribe. And last but not least, hit that notification bell.
Ding.
To be in the know whenever we drop a new video. It's one of my favorite things. I just love it. Just love it. So if you want to be in the know, hit that.
He loves it when our notification bell goes off. But he does love it when you sign up for it too.
Yeah.
Anyway, we want you to stick around and join the fun with us.
What's tomorrow's?
Oh, I was like, are we starting over?
No.
Did we mess up? What are you doing? What's tomorrow?
Always growing.
And he even
talked
said
about that today.
That was one of our values, always growing. So, all right, we'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Bye.